Hi everyone, and welcome. My intended title for this video was Perched in a Tree, thank you card using blending brushes and Snow Magic specialty paper. I did also use our Stampin' Blends alcohol markers, but a more appropriate title would probably be A Card Making Disaster and How to Fix It. I had a few issues with this card. I learned that you probably should not be trying to do a video at 3 o'clock in the morning after a long day of traveling. And but I had to work through it. And so I showed you if the same thing happens to you, it probably won't. You'll probably be more careful than me, but ways to fix it. So here's the card that we are going to be making. And I did use Perch in a Tree. I did a similar card with different colors, different layout a couple of weeks ago in a previous YouTube video. And this is a stamp set, Perched in a Tree. And the dies that I used are called Aspen Tree dies. And they have these dies. The leaves are really pretty. And these ones as well. And then I also used our Deckled Circles, which were new with our last annual catalog in May. There are 14 dies. They range in size from about 1 inch up to about 6 inches. So, by the way, I am Kim Croker of Stampin' with Kim Arlene, and I am from the west coast of Canada, just outside of Vancouver. And if you enjoy my videos, please do subscribe and like them. This one will teach you what not to do and things that you should be doing as well, and how to fix it if you goof like I did. So here you go. Let's get started. All right. So to get started with this card, we are going to take a piece of basic white cardstock that is 3 inches wide by 2.5 inches tall. And I'm going to use the bird stamp from Perched in a Tree and my Memento black ink. And I'm just going to stamp the bird. This is a large stamp, so I'm just going to take my ink pad to my stamp. And I'm just going to put that on there and set that off to the side. And I'm going to be coloring with our Stampin' Blends alcohol markers. And I'm going to start with the Balmy Blue and the light and the dark. And I am going to be coloring his head and belly and throat in the basic, or sorry, the Balmy Blue. I always like to start with my darker colors, and I just go in where the markings for the darker color are showing already on the stamp. That's usually a pretty good indication of where it should be darker. Now, I really want lots of his belly to be quite light. So I'm just going to add a little bit of the light color, and then I'm going to use the color blender. Not the color blender, sorry, the color lifter. Okay, so there's the dark. I'm going to also put some onto his belly. And what I'm doing, I don't know if you can see that very well, is on the darker parts that are added onto the stamp, I'm going to do my coloring on those, the dark, and then I'm going to add my light and blend it. Just going to add a tiny bit of color there, and I'll work with that part first. And the color lifter does blend the colors like the other alcohol blends do as well, but it's also removing a little bit of that color as it blends them. So I've got his belly so that it is, or his throat there so that it's quite light. And I'm going to do pretty much the same thing on his belly as well. For the bigger areas, I will take, this is the light balmy blue now, I will take my brush end, which is the wider end, which you can see that there. I'm also going to be using some Azure Afternoon, and a tiny bit of Orchid Oasis. I want this part to be a little darker than this part here. And I'm using the bullet end now. Okay, I'm going to start with the Orchid Oasis, and I'm just going to use the light one because this is quite a strong color. And I'm just going to put some into the darkest parts of the wings. And again, I'm following the shading on the stamp itself. As I've mentioned before, I'm not really very artistic, and so I'm just kind of winging it. Oh dear, pun was not intended as I'm working on his wing. All right, I'm going to add a little bit of the dark Azure Afternoon in with this to the darker parts where I think it's going to be darkest, or more likely where Stampin' Up! Thinks it's darkest. And then I'm going to blend all of that with the light Azure Afternoon. And this is quite a strong color as well. And I'm going to add just a touch of the light Azure Afternoon into parts of his head. And then I'm going to blend that with the darker Balmy Blue. And I'm just going to take a bit of crumb cake for his beak and his feet. I think this is the dark crumb cake that I have. Yes. Okay, so that's finished with my blends. And while I have the inks out, I'm going to do my branch. Oh dear, I'm so sorry for not showing you the colors. I'm still pretty new at this, and I just forget sometimes. So there's your colors that I used on the bird. And the next thing I'm going to do is to do the branch, and I have a piece of basic white cardstock that is 5 1/4 inches by, or 5 inches by 1 1/4 inches, and I'm going to stamp the branch with pecan pie. I just realized I put away my crumb cake Stampin' lens, and I am going to use that. This one as well is quite large, so I'm going to take my ink to my stamp. And because this is one of our red rubber cling stamps, I don't need to use a photopolymer mat with this. This makes really great contact with that rubber part of the stamp. And let's get that crumb cake. And again, this is the darker. And again, following those lines that Stampin' Up! Has so very kindly put on the stamps for non-artistic people like myself. Now, when it gets down to the skinnier bits, I sometimes will use the bullet end to try and be a little bit more accurate. Sometimes if I'm feeling brave, I'll just use the brush end. These are really fun to color with. When these first came out, I thought, oh, I would never use these. But I do love them. All right, and now that those are both done, I'm going to get my mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And then the dies that I'm going to use are from the Aspen Tree dies. And I've got one for the branch and one for the bird. And I mentioned this last time, I did another card using the Aspen Tree dies a couple of weeks ago. And I think I've got that one here somewhere to show you. I do. This one here, different colors. I'm very much a person who loves to use blues, so this was different for me, but I liked it. I thought it turned out okay. And what I mentioned is there are little holes in the end of the die, which are really hard to see. You can maybe see them there. And those you would line up with the ends of the branches, which you would hopefully be able to see through the holes. Now I can't see this because I'm not putting my head right over top, so I'm just going to have to do a hopefully good approximation. And I have some of the Artist low tack tape, which is very helpful in keeping the die where you want it to be. And that's going back onto my magnetic sheet before I lose it. That turned out quite well. And let's do the bird as well. And again, I'm going to use my low tack tape. Oh, I was going to say that's all the die cutting we have for this one, but it is not. However, the other die cutting is larger. I have to use my large Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. I will often stick that tape back onto the top, the handle, or the edges of my embossing machine so they're handy. What I'm doing right now is sticking it on the corner of the desk because I know that I'm going to be switching machines. Okay, next we're going to be doing a blending brush background. And this one, rather than doing a sun, I thought I would do a moon. So I've got a piece of Post-it note. You can use the Stampin' Up! Masking paper, which is excellent as well. And I just want to show you, I have a 1-inch punch. You could use a 1-inch punch or 1-inch die. And what I did is I punched it out. This is probably even silly for me to show you because I'm sure you can figure this out. But once I've got that shape, then I'm just going to pop that in there. I'll show you a little trick is to put that onto a Post-it note so that you can get it in there. And I just want to cut another portion out, and then you got your moon like that. All right, I have a blue one. I'm putting it so that it is about 1 inch down from the top and about 1/2 inch down from the right hand edge. And then I'm going to start with As Your Afternoon. And using the small blending brushes to start with, we have 2 sizes, the small and the large. They come with a set of 3 each. And this is quite an inky one, so I need to tap it off a little bit so I don't get a big blotch. And then I'm just going to go around in a circle. And I do this for a while, and then I get impatient and I forget to tap it off. And you may not be able to see that I'm doing this, but I'm basically starting on the Post-it note, not right onto the paper, in case I do have a blob. You can see that's pretty blobby. Probably I should just be tapping once in my ink pad. And just a circular motion, but don't forget to do that inner curve of the moon as well. Okay, and next I am going to do Highland Heather. And this one is very not inky. If it's not inky, I'll sort of swoop around in the ink pad a little bit. Then I'll start doing smaller circles around the circle. You can see I've got a little bit of a blob there. I'm hoping that will go under a frame that I'm going to make. And I do overlap the previous color. Okay, and next I'm going to use Orchid Oasis. And I'm going to use a big brush with that one because I've got a bigger area left to do. This one is also a bit inky, so I will start off the paper. Oops, that one is kind of blobby. Now, I normally like to do it quite dark in the corners. I'm not going to do the bottom right corner quite as dark because that's where I'm going to be putting my sentiment. And I do the sentiment after I've done the blended background, just in case it smudges the sentiment. course, the problem then is you hope that you do it straight and don't mess it up. Now, if you have any of the Stampin' Up! Retired shimmery white paper, it is a fabulous paper for doing blending brush backgrounds. The basic white is fine. I still prefer the shimmery white. So I'm going to hold this with a Post-it note so that I don't get too much ink on my fingers. Trying to add a little bit more ink to this corner to cover up the smudges, not the smudges, the blotches. All right, I think we're finished. Now I'm just going to, there's the colors for you, Azure Afternoon, Highland Heather, and Orchid Oasis. Just going to remove this. And you can see that it is quite white. And I'm going to take that and color it a little bit, not color it, but put a little bit of Wink of Stella on it, just to give it a little bit of shine. Not sure if you can see that. See if I can pick up the light there. And then the other thing I'm going to do, the Wink of Stella, is I'm going to take it and tap it on the lid over the paper. And what that does is give it a bunch of tiny dots of glitter, which gives a little bit of sparkle to the background. Pretty sure it's a bit difficult to see on camera. Let's see, I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully you can. And then I probably should have done this first, but I've got my sentiment. This is also from Perched in a Tree, and it says, "Your kindness warms my heart." Now, what I've done with this is to make it straight, or to hopefully make it straight, let's say that, I line it up on my grid sheet so that it looks to me like the printing is straight. And then what I'll do is I'll try it. I'll put my block on it so that my block lines up with the lines of the grid paper, and then I'll try it by putting the stamp block in line with my grid, and then check out to see if I do have it straight or not. This looks straight, so as long as I can do the same thing onto the paper, I should be okay. So I'm trying to line up the edges of my cardstock with the edges of my block, and that turned out not too badly, actually. All right, next I'm going to get a piece of Orchid Oasis. Oh, you know what I didn't write down here? I will add that onto the video because I need this first, is I'm going to take a piece of Snowflake Magic 12 by 12 designer series paper. This is a 4" by 4" piece. And then I'm going to take the deckled circles dies, and I'm taking the 6th and the 8th largest. I don't think I have that written down either. I will add that when I go through and check out the video. And then I've got these two taped together with a piece of the Artist Low Tack tape. I just want to check on the back to make sure I'm actually going to be covering the paper, that the edges of the die won't go over the edge. And then I'm just going to bring in my big Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. So I'll just grab that. Okay, and now that I've got that out, I'm just going to pop that onto my cutting plate and get that out of the way. this is a great set of dies. There are 14 of them in the die set. And as I said, this is the 6th and 8th largest. And it goes down to about an inch in size. Put those on the magnetic plate before I lose them. And then we'll put this together. So I have a piece of Orchid Oasis cardstock that is 8.5 by 5.5 and scored at 4 1/4. And my next piece is a Starry Sky piece of cardstock, excuse me, that is 4 inches by 5 1/4. Just put some glue on the back of that, making sure I have it opening the correct way. I hope I'm not the only person who's ever put it on upside down on the wrong side. All right, so we have that. And then I'm going to put our blended background on top of that. Now, when I put this all together, I'm going to put the frame fairly close to the top. I don't want to cover up that sentiment. The sentiment could possibly have been a little bit closer to the bottom. I think I've got it about 1/4 of an inch up from the Starry Sky layer, and I think probably an 1/8 of an inch would have been better. Anyway, I'm going to layer this, and I want to put the branch under, and then so that it comes out over top of that, but not across the edge there. So I'm going to trim about 1/4 of an inch off the branch. And then I'm going to put glue on the back of my frame. But I also want to put this branch in pretty quickly. So I'm going to put some glue on this now and do them both at the same time. Well, almost. Okay. That was brilliant. All right, so this I'm going to be careful to, oh, darn it. Center it from side to side and making sure that I'm not covering the bottom. I'm going to have to let that glue dry because if I use I do have a glue eraser. If I use it now though, I'm afraid it will take off some of that color. I'm hoping that it won't do that. And I'm just going to get my stylus and lift this edge a little bit where I want this to be. There we go. Now, when I put my bird on here, what I would like to do is I want him to pop up a little bit in the center. So I'm going to take 3 dimensionals and put them down the center from the middle of his back down to his feet. Put the 3 of them in a row, and then I'll put glue around the edge. Don't know if I should try that yet. I think we're going to have a little break and cross my fingers that this is going to work. We'll try this. The other thing I'm going to do, I can do this first, is get some 3 of the rhinestone basic jewels. And I'm going to put those on, just 3 of them. And I think I will use 2 small and a medium. And I'm not going to put that there because that's going to get in the way of when I use my glue eraser. And I'm going to take a medium one and put it down here. So I'll just put this one on for now. And then I will pause the video to let that glue dry and hope that it all works out. Okay, here's what I've done. I have used my glue eraser. If you don't have one of these, they are generally pretty amazing. Actually, all teachers should have these. And they're great for crafts. If you get little bits of glue outside of where you want them to be, you just use them like an eraser, and it sort of actually collects the glue together and removes it. So That's on most surfaces. On this one, you might be able to see there's it has removed a bit of the color from where the glue was. And I'm just going to try and see if I can fix that. This is a great lesson for you to not do what I do. So I've got the Highland Heather right now, and I've got my small brush, and I've just cut that same smaller deckled circle out of a piece of scrap paper, and I just want to use that so that I don't get some color onto the paper, the specialty paper, the Snow Magic specialty paper. I had to think of the name of that. And then I'm just trying to add the Highland Heather. It's not working too badly, actually. I'm pretty happy with how that's looking. Oh my gosh, you can barely see that. And there's a little bit down in here. I'm just going to show you right near by the branch above it. There's a little bit of glue that's still there. So I'm just going to try and get that last little bit out. And then you can tell by the feel, and it takes it completely away, which is pretty awesome. Now I could use the Orchid Oasis in this part because it is more Orchid Oasis there, but I don't want to press my luck, and the Highland Heather is actually covering it quite nicely. And then I've got a little bit down below as well. And what can I do? I can take this circle and put close to that. That's actually the inside of the piece that I used. It doesn't match perfectly, but it should give it a little bit of coverage. Pouncing actually works pretty well there. A little bit more there, I think. I think that actually looks not too bad. All right, let's get that bird on there. Anyway, that was a bit of a disaster, wasn't it? Just be more careful when you turn your gluey paper over top. Okay, so I have those 3 dimensionals, the mini dimensionals down the center. And I'm going to very carefully put some glue on the edges, the right and left edges. Not too much. This glue really, you only need a tiny bit. And I want him to be sitting on that branch. So I want to figure out his tail is going to go over the edge of the frame, and I want to make sure he's not right in front of the moon. So let's put him there. I'm going to put my dimensionals down first, and then the edges. And then I'll put those other 2 rhinestone basic jewels. So I've got the medium one there, and I think I don't have a whole lot of room. I want to put 2 up here. I'm going to put a small one at the lower edge, and I'm just going to see if a medium will be too big. No, I think that's okay. All right, so there, the disaster 101, a fix. It worked not too badly. Okay. If you like my videos and you enjoy my misadventures, please hit the like button, and that will help more people to see my silly crafting. All right. So here is the card with the goofs and with the fixes. I think it turned out really quite well. I can't remember if I mentioned I did use the heat tool to make the glue dry more quickly so that I wasn't going to be finishing the video at 4 o'clock in the morning. This background technique, as I mention every time, is great for all sorts of cards, different colors. You can mix whatever colors go well together, put them in front of silhouettes or flower cutouts or scenery. It's always fun to work with those. Did you sign up for our Stars at Night online Mega Stamp Camp? Registration is closed for Canada because you may not get the products on time if you with the delivery and so on, but we can talk if you're interested. And if you live outside Canada, there is an option for you, and that is still available for sign up. Also, there will be a free video tutorial link below for this card, and it's a printable, downloadable one, so hopefully that will be helpful to you. So, as always, if you like my videos, please subscribe. I will see you again soon for more tips, tricks, techniques, and possibly other disasters. Who knows? But we'll figure out how to fix them if those happen. All right. Thanks so much for stopping by, and we'll see you again next time. Take care. Bye bye.